Recently, a clip of Meghan Markle may have come across your feed where she was asked a question about what she thought about the political direction of this country. She gave a very diplomatic, one could call LA answer, royal family answer, where she said she hoped people were living out their own personal values. She also looked a little pained. That was not met very well in the comments. And yes, there's this irritation sometimes that the most privileged among us don't have to directly answer or get involved in the fray. But it brings up this other question that I wanted to ask you, especially since this audience is filled with so many fabulous Black women, which is, what is our place in a time of turmoil? Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in pursuit of her goals, her protection, her peace, has changed and rebranded her life multiple times. Her decisions regarding her money, her time, and her work have been met with the kind of scrutiny a lot of you have felt in various ways throughout your own lives. She's had to pivot in public in a way that emotionally would be very difficult for most people to survive unscathed. And of course, right now, as you know, she's currently starring and creating her show Love Meghan, which is on Netflix. Her partnership with Netflix is this natural extension of this desire to build a brand outside of the fold of the royal family. Both seasons of Love Meghan and her brand as ever, these are not new, out of left field ventures for her. This is a return to her roots. She used to run a very successful blog called The Tig and would discuss her lifestyle and homemaking skills. And we should note, it's a calming, comforting type of lifestyle content and a way of living that was previously inaccessible for Black women in America. It was something that was actually legally kept from them. Black women have traditionally, of course, tended to the home, just not their own. Black women's place creating and protecting the domestic sphere is something that was part of being enslaved. It was something that, even after enslavement, a lot of Black women found themselves with that as their only option because they were legally barred from education or accessing other vocations. There's a region in the South where Black homemakers were actually made illegal because the white women in that community realized that all these Black women who are now using their husband's paycheck from being in the military were no longer readily available to take care of their own homes. That's part of why it's so funny when a certain group of people come online to talk about how we need to bring back traditional values, because it reveals this ignorance that they don't know who it cost to make that context possible back in the day. Love Meghan can only exist in a society that has had some significant changes in what it views the Black woman's place in America. In the past, we had a Meghan who was very frank about what she thought about this administration and what she thought about politics. She has a fancy Northwestern private school education about politics and governance. Contrary to the British press, she is a very intelligent, well-read individual. This place where you're at the front of the protest, where you're very frank and open about policy and how it's affecting you, it has been a norm for Black women across the centuries, but it is no longer a given for Meghan. Meghan now has a choice to decide how vulnerable to make herself and her children. One of the downsides of marrying a modern prince and being the only Black member of a royal family is that you now need 24/7 protection because people want to hurt you. To leave the grip of the monarchy means to pay for that yourself. That's a very expensive bill, no matter how much Princess Diana gave you, no matter how many assets you were gifted by this colonial empire. And when you know that espousing some beliefs in a certain country with certain lack of regulations around certain items, you might be tempted to cool it in order to protect you and your kids. I think Meghan and a lot of you have worked very hard with your various degrees of privilege and wealth to create calm nervous systems for yourself and your families. Some feedback I got after the last election was that a lot of you were no longer interested in throwing yourself directly into the fray of another demographic's making. I think there's an exhaustion among some of you to keep repeating yourself, to keep repeating the same warnings and being asked to save the country time and time again. But returning to the values that are within Love Meghan and espoused by the Duchess herself, thinking about Deirdre McCullough's idea about silence in the Christian faith and how sometimes silence is a position of power and sometimes it is a position where you are actually enabling your abuser. What are some of you able to accomplish by keeping your jobs, keeping it moving, and privately funding certain things or helping the people in your community quietly? But what do we lose when there is an opportunity to speak up and speak out and people decide not to? What does the fancy Black woman owe society in this moment? Does that change when you become a mother? Does that change when you're trying to sell a lifestyle brand to all sides of the country? Are you smart for trying to stay alive to fight another day? Or are you silencing yourself as a voice of change and power? I cannot imagine that any one Black woman would have the same answers to all of those questions. I can absolutely understand the audience frustration that a star in a show about community and the power of love has a very diplomatic answer from its star about very real pressing concerns that are threatening those things. We know that Meghan Markle's voice holds power. We know that the people who make our domestic lives possible, who put our food on our tables, are in serious danger. That is a real critique that shouldn't get lost when we're thinking about individual protection. And maybe sometimes being brave and speaking up is the risk that our values ask us to take. And at the same time, I can absolutely understand a cynicism from Black women like Meghan and you because your voice has not been wanted or respected in the past. As a Hollywood actress especially, Meghan has been asked to shut up. There's also the possibility that visibility and outspokenness, they're not the only political card you have to play. Meghan getting wealthier, lobbying privately, donating insane amounts of money to certain causes because she is able to keep a lifestyle brand going and she's taking money from the racists and they don't even know it, that's a move too. There might be a realization that the level of perfection that she in particular, or you in particular, have to have in order to speak on a topic might not be worth your time. Notice how even her proximity to whiteness, her light features, and the fact that she has a multi-ethnic background has not saved her. There is something to be said about playing the long game. And yes, it's easier to be diplomatic and quiet and kind of hedge your bets when you have children and a business at stake. There are people with significantly less privilege and protection where their voice is the only card they have left to play. And there are privileged Hollywood people who do risk a lot by choosing to make their beliefs known. There are powerful entertainment figures who understand that them voicing certain beliefs helps normalize something that might be considered fringe. And at the same time, as I'm going to keep saying, there's something to be said about Black women being able to tune into Love Meghan and not see this lady fight for her life. I might not be alone in my irritation that there's this very clear, outspoken call for all Black women to come to the front of the line when people don't even hold their own family and friends accountable. Like a lot of people, Meghan is absolutely in business for herself. But her business has also been calming content for the 92%, amongst other people. Nationally, there has been this call for the 92% of Black women to recoup and reconvene. It's not a small or trivial thing for Black women to sustain themselves and their peace in this time. We can't downplay how powerful it is to work with our hands to create calmer nervous systems, to nourish each other, and to create a beautiful space for our communities to gather matter. I don't know what checks powerful Black women are cutting with racist money. I don't blame some of the Black moms who have decided they don't trust people with their opinions. Increased privilege and protection through fame, it is something that somebody has to consider, but also what comes with it is an increased vulnerability. Now, granted, we also have to have policy to move forward. Solidarity and sacrifice, they are part of what we have to pay to get a society that treats us well. But a lot of you knew what the assignment was and you delivered. I don't think it's an accident that most of Meghan's audience are saying we were not the people that aimed at our own feet. Not every lesson is ours to learn. I think Meghan knows that most of her audience is in this period where they want to just donate money and take care of themselves as they try to live through this time. A couple years back, the news of another young Black man who had been unjustly executed had hit, and I was running into a store and randomly was very, very hungry. I was in a community at the time where when news like that would hit, it was no big deal. I will never forget the eye contact of the older Black woman who was manning the counter, who very lovingly packed my lunch for me. She secretly added extra food that she technically should not have added, and she told me to take care of myself. And I was overcome right there at the counter. I felt like my sadness and that madness was invisible. And in that act of hospitality, I felt fed and cared for and like my body mattered, and I felt empowered to go on. That act, like the recipes in Love Meghan, they don't change a system of violence. They don't undo systemic bias. They don't even change necessarily the fabric of the society, but they can care for the people within it. Can provide a bit of love and softness, just like some of your favorite Black creators on here, to a people who have been asked to be tough all the time. The question of when and where I enter that Professor Paula Giddens so aptly titled her book with, it's not answered once. We ask it over and over again at different stages of our Black lives. And I can't speak necessarily for anyone's true heart or how another Black woman chooses to weigh or measure her silence. My first reaction to that clip was judgment. And sometimes I think that is necessary in a time where people accrue massive amounts of privilege and wealth. People who make that system possible for them can ask that system to account for itself. I don't know if our rage should right now be directed at rich Black moms. I don't feel comfortable asking a Black homemaking show to lead the discourse on this. This deserves a much longer conversation, but I did want to know what you thought. Stay safe.